Okay. All right. Okay. Hope that works. All right. Okay. So thank you for attending, and I will encourage you to please follow me on YouTube, where I have all the recordings of the most recent discussions we've had. And let's see, so you can find me on YouTube at Ed Katz, simple as that. And let's see what else we got here. All right, so we're doing this Alien today, and next time I'll let everybody vote. So we'll do a voting one for next month. But I want to give you some background on Alien. And first off, show of hands. Who liked the movie?
Here's Ben's hand.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, thank you. And show of hands, who didn't? Okay. Some so-so and a few, about 50-50 actually. Wow, okay. All right.
You liked it,
Yeah, good movie.
Which one's mine?
Ooh, that's interesting. Computer, I don't know. Just trying. All right.
We hear you fine, Ed.
You clearly,
All right. Okay, great.
loud
Thanks.
and clear.
All right. Okay, all right, let's go. So Alien came out in 1979. On IMDb, it got an 8.4 out of 10, which is extremely high rating. On Rotten Tomatoes, a 98% from the critics. The consensus was it's a modern classic. Alien blends science fiction, horror, and bleak poetry into a seamless whole. The budget was about 11 million. The box office in the United States was over 81 million, and overseas was over 25 million. And the director was Ridley Scott, and I'll touch base on him in a minute. But
That's incredible.
first, right, and everybody, glad I remember this. Please put your info in the chat so I know who attended, and I'll send you out the info for voting for next time. So just please put your contact info in the chat. Thank you. All right, so for someone who didn't like the movie, someone want to share their thoughts on why? Hands, anyone?
I thought it was slow. I thought it was very slow, especially at the beginning.
Yes, actually, I'll talk about that. Yeah, there's
Yeah.
45 minutes where almost nothing happens.
I mean, it's
Right.
crazy. You sit there and, you know, and where we're at now with technology, looking at those spaceships after Star Wars, you know, I mean, it's hard to go back after we've seen so much and, you know, so much growth in that industry in terms of, you know, the creation of the vehicles, whatever. It just didn't fly with me.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. Mike?
Yeah, first I inadvertently watched the wrong edition, a later one.
Oh, no.
Do you know which one you saw? Did you see Aliens or Alien 3?
You know, I haven't, two.
Oh, so
I haven't-
Aliens, that was the one directed by James Cameron. That was actually considered a very good movie.
That's exactly what I was about to say. Much better than the original. I mean, the graphics were better, the action was better, a lot more exciting, and I didn't sleep through that version.
Okay. All right. Okay. Anyone have a thought on the positive?
The best part was the guy who blew the bubble with the chewing gum.
Was that Yaphet Kotto or was that Harry Dean Stanton?
Yaphet Kotto.
The black guy.
Yeah, Yaphet Kotto. Okay, yeah. Yeah, one of my all-time favorite character actors, by the way. He's always terrific. And
Yeah, I felt that they really stereotyped that a black actor, which I didn't like too much.
in what ways?
Well, I mean, he was lazy and he just did the minimum and he was a naysayer and he was a joke, he just like not
a
a
male
top,
chauvinist.
top-notch guy.
Male chauvinist pig.
He was?
Yeah.
No, I
He
didn't
made,
think
he
he.
made, he made comments about women. It was just a real stereotyped, old-fashioned anti-black commentary. I didn't.
Okay, well, now, in fairness to the film,
Right.
Harry Dean Stanton and Yaphet Kotto's characters were kind of two peas in a pod. They both tried kind of getting away with doing the minimum, and you're just caring about getting their share. And so the two of them were in cahoots together, and I didn't.
Yeah, the two
I-
of them, but.
I didn't look at it as being a racial stereotype. I thought he was kind of a fun character. Now, an interesting thing is, if you thought there might be some tension between Sigourney Weaver's character of Ripley and Yaphet Kotto's character of Parker, Yaphet Kotto years later said in an interview that director Ridley Scott told him on the set to harass Sigourney Weaver, to bother her and irritate her and be nasty to her, so there would be tension between the two characters in the movie.
Huh.
How about that?
So it wasn't acting.
Right, yeah, right. So it wasn't so much acting. There's some
We
other
have
stuff he pulled
more
on
acting.
the actors that was kind of a surprise as well. Oh, we got one more coming through. One sec. Okay.
The other thing is interesting, Sigourney's name is Susan Alexandra.
What do you mean, Elizabeth?
Her real name.
Oh, okay.
Well,
Sigourney makes her much more exciting.
Right.
You're right.
Okay. Nancy, you got to unmute yourself, Nancy.
Also dismissed her.
mhm.
You're still muted, Nancy. You got to find the unmute button. There you go.
Oh,
Okay.
no.
You're muted again, Nancy. I don't know what happened, but you got muted again. Go ahead.
Try to- Oh, there she goes.
Can you hear me?
Yes, now we hear you.
When I watched this movie, I thought, oh my goodness, I don't usually watch, horror movies, scary movies, but I thought, well, okay, I trusted your judgment. And I tried to remember, which helped me a lot in this movie, that it was made in 1979 and what was going on there. So for me, I thought for that time, it was pretty interesting about how they really tried to look to a lot of futuristic things. The other thing I thought about it was it held my attention, and I had a lot of unanswered questions. I thought that's why I wanted to come to this review, because a lot of things I didn't understand, or I didn't always see what was going on. But from the very beginning, I did not trust the scientist guy from like almost the first half hour. I didn't.
Okay.
Ash.
Okay. That's a good
They
point.
also dismissed her, that Sigourney Weaver, because she was the female. She
Yes.
had and she was totally dismissed. Everything she said, no, 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 no. And even when she was in charge of the ship at one point, they didn't care, and they overwrote, everything she was overrided with.
Right. So,
And she was a survivor.
right.
Right,
But
right, right.
what was it? So you might be interested to know that her character was originally written to be a male.
Oh, interesting.
One of the producers, and they didn't say which one in the article I saw, said, you know what, let's make that character a female, and it'll be like a revolutionary film, because a woman is the hero and the survivor and the one who's
Right.
tougher than the men and smarter to get through it.
Well, she wasn't that smart. She ran after that stupid cat.
Right,
Well, that was put in to humanize her because she was so tough.
right.
That was to
guess.
show that she was her last semblance of humanity through all the toughness she had a intestinal fortitude she had to show to get through the whole ordeal. So the cat Jones, and of course, when you have a jonesing for something, it's a need. So that was the cat's name, Jones.
And
So
animal
there's
rights
a
people
lot
would
of
have been
other
really
stuff going on in
upset
the
if
movie.
something happened to that cat.
What was
The
that, Marcia?
animal rights people would have been really upset if something
Why
happened
did
to
cat
that
live?
cat.
Oh, of course. Said you
Oh,
killed the
my God.
people, but not the cat.
Yeah, they actually, the scene where the cat looked terrified was because they surprised the cat by putting a large dog right in front of it. And that's where they got the reaction. I read that. I
Yeah,
think it was
they
a
wouldn't allow
big
that.
black lab or something.
Oh, God.
So that's how they got the cat to look that terrified. And then they also filmed it in slow motion because it was such a quick segment. They just took what they could get and they kind of used it in slow motion.
I could've
Okay,
sworn-
so the director Ridley Scott, he really became famous. You know, this movie obviously helped launch him. This was really his second feature film, The Duelists in 1977, which if I saw it was years ago and I really don't remember it, was his first movie. But after this, he was really famous for making that famous Apple 1984 TV ad. Do you remember that one? So 1984 won't be like 1984, and the woman dressed in like a U.S. Olympic outfit runs through a room that's set like in the George Orwell type setting of 1984 and throws a hammer at the big screen and smashes it. That was very, very one of the all-time most famous commercials ever that ran actually in 1984 in the Super Bowl. So
Wow.
anyway, he made that commercial. He also directed Thelma and Louise, Gladiator with Russell Crowe, and Black Hawk Down, and more recently in 2015, The Martian with Matt Damon. He had a gap for several years, and the reason for that is he was working on The Good Wife on TV for many years. He was one of the people behind that. So he's had 4 Academy Award nominations for Thelma and Louise, Gladiator, Black Hawk Down, and The Martian. And this movie, I want to see where I thought I had the awards for this one.
No.
I'm not seeing it here.
That was the other.
All right, I'll cover it later then. Okay, so this launched a whole series. Oh yeah, Blade Runner, of course, was another one, right? So the other movies he made that kind of, well, he didn't make them, but there was a sequel, Gladiators, which was directed by James Cameron, and that was made about 6 years after this one. Really good reviews. It had multiple aliens in it, and that kind of added the suspense. It was much more of an action movie, whereas this one built slowly. There was also an Alien 3 directed by David Fincher, great director, but not necessarily his appropriate medium and not as nearly as well received. Then there was Alien versus Predator, also not well received, but huge at the box office. And was another one. Oh, and then, so like in 2012, Ridley Scott made the sort of a prequel. He never directly addressed whether it was, but he said it kind of sets up the world that Alien is in, and it was called Prometheus. So it was a pretty good movie. I thought Alien and Aliens were much better, but anyway. Okay, so he said, and this is no, this is not his. Yeah, this is his quote. Okay, this is Ridley Scott talking about Prometheus. I thought in the near future, the world would be owned by large companies. That's why we have the Tyrrell Corporation in Blade Runner and Weyland-Yutani in Alien. They sent the Nostromo spaceship. The Prometheus is owned by an entrepreneur called Peter Weyland, who is played by Guy Pearce. That's the connection between the two films, nothing more. But if you look at them, you can kind of see there's more than that just simple connection. He also said, I cast carefully. If I cast very well, the actors are going to help me on the day we shoot, and I'm going to help them. It becomes a partnership. I don't do a lot of rehearsal. What I tend to do is when we walk on the floor, I literally shoot the first rehearsal and rehearse on camera, because then you get the energy of coming in prepared, but not rehearsed, and then you get a reality. If you over-rehearse, it goes dead when you shoot, and you spend time getting back to where you found in rehearsals. I'm not unusual that way. Clint Eastwood does it, so does Martin Scorsese. More actors like it than they care to admit. If it's well written, you don't have to rehearse. In this case, we had a great script from a great book. Now on casting Alien, I cast Ripley really late. 2 weeks out, we still hadn't found her. Then somebody came up, I think it was Warren Beatty, and said, there's this woman on off-Broadway on the theater boards. Her name's Sigourney Weaver. You should meet with her. Interesting. So I called her, went to New York. She walks in. She must have been 6'6" with an afro. So she's like 7'2", and I was like a midget, and I had dinner with her. That was it. So the other person who they almost gave the part to was Meryl Streep.
Oh.
She was coming fresh off The Deer Hunter. She wasn't like huge, but she was just starting to get there. So his line is, I'm a yarn teller. My job is to engage you as much as I can and as often as I can. I love the process. Still continue to adore the process, actually. I don't get attached to anything. I'm like a good antique dealer. I'm prepared to sell my most valuable table.
Mhm.
And that was his line. Now, I thought it was kind of interesting because he had come from the advertising world. So he's used to telling effective stories in 30 seconds to a minute. And then he made The Duelists and then Alien, and he was off to the races at that point. Now, the guy who wrote the story and came up with much of it was Dan O'Bannon, who was a USC film school grad. He got his first work writing on John Carpenter's Dark Star. Did anyone see John Carpenter's Dark Star? Nobody? Oh, okay. Really fun, low budget science fiction movie. John Carpenter, of course, went on to make Halloween, very scary. Dark Star was actually more of a comedy, a little bit of a dark comedy, but a comedy. So anyway, O'Bannon said he was supposed to work on Dune in 1976, but that fell through. He was broke and homeless. So he's living with his friend named Ronald Shusett. Together, they came up with the story for Alien. In the 80s, O'Bannon helped create the animated movie Heavy Metal, and then John Badham's Blue Thunder and Life Force. Okay, and then he returned to direct, his first directing was Return of the Living Dead in 1985. He and Shusett teamed up to make Total Recall with Arnold Schwarzenegger, a pretty good higher budget science fiction movie, if you didn't see that. It was a story by Philip Dick, a big science fiction writer. Now, O'Bannon died from complications from Crohn's disease in 2009. Interestingly enough, he obviously always had it. He credited the chest burst scene in Alien to his experience dealing with Crohn's disease and how it made him feel. So that's where he had the idea for the chest burst scene where the alien comes through. Okay, the alien itself, which is called a xenomorph, it was designed by H.R. Geiger. If you're familiar with Geiger's art, very dark, heavy art. But if you notice, the ship, a lot of the piping and tubing in the ship looked like the alien. So it was done that way on purpose so the alien could have camouflage. Now the question is, does the alien adapt itself to the surroundings, or were the surroundings done to accommodate the alien and it's sort of just a hybrid? I couldn't get clarity reading on the differences on that. Now, Alien, I want, at some point, I'll find in my notes, I have where, why the movie, because he had a hard time getting the green light to make this movie. Some of the producers were like, it goes 45 minutes and nothing happens. And he's like, yes, that's the point. It lulls you in to the pace. And then when everything happens, it hits you harder. There almost wasn't the scene. Oh, and I don't have it. Do you remember the scene where they find the ship, the crashed ship with the skeleton of the huge alien that was the pilot of the other ship that crashed, that was supposedly the thing giving the distress signal?
Yep.
This huge ship with a huge alien at the controls dead, and his stomach was also burst, which they noticed. All right, so in order to make that set look larger, because they were on a relatively low budget for a science fiction movie, they almost didn't have that scene. Ridley Scott begged them to put that scene in, and he had all these drawings he did himself on what it would look like, and then finally they're like, okay, we'll do it. So, but they wanted, in order to make it look bigger than it was, the actors that were the space, you see the little space people in their suits approaching the huge alien and the crashed ship. It was Ridley Scott's kid and one of the production designers' kid. So they were little kids in spacesuits. So that way they made the whole set look much bigger.
Oh, that's cute.
That's
I
fine.
thought that was very clever. I mean, it's just, how to make do with what you can.
It's like big.
Okay, let's see. Now,
Can I ask you a question, Ed?
absolutely, sure, go right ahead.
It's probably out of order for you, but you asked us how we felt about the film. What made you choose this film? Of all the films, what made you choose this one?
Good
All right.
question.
Very fair question. We haven't done a science fiction. We haven't done a horror movie. And this was maybe one of the best examples I could think of both. Plus, it came out when I was in college, the summer in between college semesters. When I went back to college, and again, I was, studying film, and I wish I could remember the teacher's name. He was a really good teacher, but unfortunately, I don't recall his name. But he asked if anyone had seen it, because we were talking about scene design And he was very into metaphysics and things like that. And he talked about the movie and he asked how many people had seen it. And with one exception, everybody in the class had already seen it. And this one girl was complaining that she lost out on the whole discussion because she hadn't seen the movie. But everybody else had seen it. And we had the whole class, we ended up talking about the production design and things he would bring into the table. Like he said, all right, did you notice that the lights were fluorescent? They put them on and they flicker. And his contention was that was done to show how primitive man is in what they're dealing with this alien, that they still have flickering lights. They don't even get instant lights. It was just one subtle point he was making as to that, to show how, and like what they use to fight the alien, they use fire. You know, there's a guy with a flamethrower, you know, and he's basically in a cave. And of course, it doesn't work out very well for him. But, you know, another funny thing they had was, you remember they tried to touch they do a dissection on the alien and he bleeds acid. The acid almost goes through the whole ship, right? You remember that?
Mhm.
So the reason for the acid was Dan O'Bannon was very frustrated. He says, he was talking to, I don't know if it was Ronald Shusett, his co-writer, or a friend or someone else on the set. And he said, I'm really frustrated because someone at some point is going to say, why didn't they just shoot the damn thing? So they had to come up with something that if they shot it, if blood would splatter, it would be a problem. So because, you know, why don't we just make the blood acid? It's like, oh, okay, I think that solves the problem. So there you go. But it fit in the thematic overall attitude of the film, in the sense that the alien is, as Ian Holm, as the science officer, Ash says, he's like almost the perfect organism. So he's got a great defense mechanism, which actually I think Tom Skerritt, as Captain, you know, Dallas, says was when he bleeds acid, they're like hell of a defense mechanism. Or I don't know if maybe it was Parker who said that. But that sets up Alien. And of course, I loved Ash's final line. Do you remember what Ash's final line was when his head is off to the side and he's spewing what was milk, which I guessed at the time was milk, but yeah, it actually was milk. You remember what his final line was to everybody when he's saying, when they're talking about, you know, how is there a way we can beat this
Never beat him
creature?
or kill him.
What?
You'll never beat him or kill him or something like that.
Right,
Yeah.
but he says, but there is one more thing. And then he
Okay.
smiles and says, you have my deepest sympathies. And then, of course, they unplug it. But, you know, so there is a sense of humor to the movie, but, you know, it's dark. It's dark.
I
Peter
thought that
Howell.
Can I ask
very
a question?
well.
Sure,
Oh.
sure, go ahead.
Do you think there's any symbolism that was supposed to be in the movie, or like they
Oh,
do
yeah.
now? Now you always see symbolism in,
There's a ton of it, and I'll cover that. But that's part of the reason I love this movie. I mean, from that film discussion, there was so much going on in this movie that I thought we'd have a lot to talk about. And once I started researching, I'm like, oh my God, there's way more than I even thought. So it's called one of the most influential movies ever made. This was by Peter Howell in the Toronto Star, and it was just written in 2015. He comments how there's a screenwriter named Blake Snyder who used the scene from Alien he called it Save the Cat, a series of manuals on successful screenplay structure. Save the Cat, obviously referring to Ripley going to get Jones. So that's the moment when a movie hero does something that wins audience affection and empathy. This could happen at any point in the movie. Saving the cat in Alien proved that Ripley had a heart because she's a steely cipher in the rest of the film. Now, other critic notes. In The Guardian, Peter Bradshaw, and this was just 2 years ago, he said, after 40 years, this sci-fi horror masterpiece still feels lethally contemporary. With screenwriters O'Bannon, Shusett, Ridley Scott created an essay on the hell of other people, the vulnerability of our bodies, and the idea of space as a limitless new extension of human paranoia. Alien also functions as a nightmare parody of the Apollo 11 moon landing, which had happened just 10 years before the movie was made, and also the biological weapons industry. Think about that, because when you think about it, I remember seeing the movie in a theater. Did anyone see it in the theater when it first came out? So it was like totally new. Okay, David, both Davids. Okay. Anne, you saw it too? Okay, so
I don't know.
what struck me is at the end of the movie, she survives and people are cheering. And I'm thinking, why are they cheering? She is going back barely, if she gets there at all, to the company that sent her to be basically cat food for this alien.
That's right.
So look at what she's going back to. It's so dark. But, again, Ridley Scott said, he thought everything was going to be owned by corporations, and that was his theme. So that totally comes through in the movie. But there is some closure, and let me see one of the. I want to see there's.
Ed?
Okay, here. One sec. Okay, this is real quick. Philip Strick from Sight and Sound magazine, and this was just 2 years ago, writes, "This gorgeous leisurely horror film expresses a spectacularly British xenophobia, a parenthetical nightmare of invasion envisioned between an awakening at the start of the film when they all wake up because of this distress signal, and a return to sleep at its close where Sigourney Weaver, goes back into the cocoon thing and to wait out the rest of her ride and see if she gets picked up. So it's supposed to be like a waking nightmare. You wake up and then, everything happens and then she goes back to sleep. Yes, sorry, go ahead.
No, I found it odd that this was owned by a private corporation, this trip, with the amount. In today's world, ironically, you have the space travelers being funded by all these large billionaires from
SpaceX, Virgin's
all
doing
of
it too. Right?
Every one of them is from one of our billionaires. I don't know about Virgin Galactica or Virgin.
Right.
We don't know how rich Branson is, but the other guys are pretty rich.
Right, and Bezos has blue something. I forget.
Yeah.
That's
They're
another
all
one.
they're all going to space and
Right.
funding space travel. It's odd. It's like an odd thing.
Kind of prescient.
Yeah, you said something else about being sacrificed by. Did they know that there was an alien out there? They didn't know there was an alien out there when they were traveling.
Well, there's a question about that because when you look at that order that Ash was following, and he was only the only one who was supposed to see it, that all other things are secondary, crew expendable, all that.
Everybody's expendable.
Right. So you wonder if they knew that there was something out there and the intent was to be able to stop on the way and make them go get it.
Right.
By putting
They
that
said
order in.
that SOS signal was really a warning to stay away at some point.
Correct.
Also.
Yes, they figured that out.
That
too
came
late.
to somebody, so they probably
Right.
knew is what I thought.
Right. So that was it. But basically the concept was it was to be brought back as a biological weapon.
The beginning of the movie reminded me of the 2001 Space Odyssey.
Yeah.
A lot of that sort of spaceship, slow motion,
Right.
filming.
Music.
Right.
All right. So
That's what you didn't tell us, Ed. You need to be stoned for the movie. You should
Yes.
have a little bit of a.
Oh, we have to watch it again then.
Right.
Right.
No, so it's interesting.
You
Ben
come
said
to
that because-
Massachusetts.
They're
Right.
opening up marijuana in New Jersey.
New Jersey.
New Jersey.
Oh,
Jersey,
gosh.
Massachusetts. Certainly
All right,
another
so-
province, part of the world.
So wait, you were talking about 2001. So Ridley Scott was asked to identify what films influenced him for this movie. And his two first answers were 2001 and the Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Huh.
Did anyone see the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie? Anybody?
It's too rude.
No, but I
Okay.
know what a chainsaw is. I don't.
Yeah,
you
and
never
you better
saw
not, you better not pick that one. for
No.
us.
We're voting from now
We
on.
don't
I have
want
to
that.
tell you,
Sequel's
though,
much better.
One
it's
man, one vote.
much more psychological horror than actual visual horror. There's very few bloody scenes. One of the bloodiest is when one of the characters, to sort of show he's crazy, cuts his hand with a knife. And that's one of the bloodier scenes. Most of it is all in the head and in suspense buildup. And that's what was phenomenal about it. But that's, you could see when you
Yeah.
look at this movie carefully, other than the two scenes where Ian Holm is beaten up to a pulp and when the alien bursts out of the stomach, all the rest, really not gruesome at all. I mean, it's like Psycho. It sets you up for it, but the payoff is pretty fleeting and not very graphic. Okay, let's see. All
monster
right, I
on
need to
its
cover that.
face.
All right, Baltimore Sun, Chris Kaltenbeck, and this was in 2003, so still, 24 years after the movie. He wrote, "Still one of the creepiest, scariest, most shocking films ever. This is one of those movies that every horror film director should be required not only to see, but also take notes on. It understands the real horror is what remains unseen, that the spine can be tingled as much by the buildup as by the event itself. The chills can come from silence, and that horror movie characters do not have to be cardboard cutouts. It's also a movie that should scare the bejabbers out of anyone with a pulse. But it's interesting he says about the silence, because do you remember the tagline for the movie? One of the most famous taglines for a movie ever. In space, no one can hear you scream.
Oh, right.
That was the ad campaign for the movie. And Variety called it an old-fashioned scary movie set in a highly realistic sci-fi future, made all the more believable by expert technical craftsmanship. Ridley Scott's 1979 movie is a great original. And in the Glenn Lovell in the San Jose Mercury News said, one of the few sci-fi films that deserves to be called a masterpiece. Okay, here's the award stuff I wanted to cover. I don't know why I missed it. It's like a page later than I thought. Okay. It won the Academy Award for Best Visual Effects. It won 3 Saturn Awards, which is a sci-fi category, for Best Science Fiction Film, Best Direction, and Best Supporting Actress, Veronica Cartwright, interestingly enough. Do you remember Veronica Cartwright, her character? I forget her character's name. Lambert. Veronica Cartwright, when she got the part, she thought she was supposed to play Ripley. It wasn't until she actually gets on the set and they're fitting her for costume that she learned she's playing Lambert. What a surprise that was. There's more about her I'll cover in a minute. So in 2002, the Library of Congress National Film Registry put Alien in the Library of Congress, calling it culturally, historically, or aesthetically significant. In 2008, the American Film Institute ranked it the 7th best film in science fiction genre in history. So you want to guess what number 1 is? It's already been mentioned.
2001, especially.
2001, right. Number 2 was Star Wars, the original Star Wars movie, which was actually Star Wars 4, but the first one made, which was the other film that Ridley Scott cited as being an influence. And he said only because it came out right before our movie. So he said he sort of had to, incorporate some of the things that were done in that.
What about E.T.? Is that considered?
E.T. was number 3.
Good,
E.T. was
good
number
guess.
3. A Clockwork Orange was number 4.
Hmm.
The Day the
That
Earth Stood
was
Still
scary.
was number 5.
Oh, I
And
love
then
that.
interestingly, Blade Runner was right ahead of this one.
What
which
was
surprised me
5?
because which?
5?
The Day the Earth Stood Still,
Yeah.
Michael
Oh.
Rennie, like from the 50s. Good,
That
really
was-
good movie though.
That film
The
really,
Terminator 2 was number 8. Invasion of the Body Snatchers was number 9, and Back to the Future was number 10. I mean, you could argue about that, but the fact is it's in the top 10 all time. All right, so
Isn't
now I
Back to the
got some
Future a comedy?
Back to the Future.
Is it a science fiction movie, Back to the Future?
Yes, it's about time travel. So yeah,
Oh.
yeah. You didn't see that one?
I saw it, but I thought it was more like comedic. I thought it was more of a.
It was. Sure. Well, I mean, to a certain extent, E.T. was also.
Yeah. I thought
Um,
E.T. was a love story.
That too, yeah. Okay, so some fascinating facts about Alien. This was from Mental Floss. Okay. It was originally called Star Beast. That was the title, but the guy who came up with the title didn't like it, and he kept saying he was typing all the dialogue in which the crew members discussed the alien, and he said that word kept jumping out. He said, "You keep saying alien, I'll just call it Alien," and he was much happier with that. Okay, let's see. Okay, so how the film got made. Again, it wasn't an easy sell. O'Bannon and Shusett, the writers, bounced between producers for a while, almost landing a deal with Roger Corman, the B-movie legend, which would have made it a totally low-budget movie and probably wouldn't have been nearly as good. But the script eventually went to a new company called Brandywine Productions with ties to 20th Century Fox. They asked for all sorts of rewrites, but each new treatment they returned wasn't swaying the brass at Fox. Then Star Wars arrived and took over the box office. Every studio in town rushed to get anything remotely science fiction into production, so Alien got the green light. Okay, then the thing about H.R. Geiger, all the aliens in the movie. So they nicknamed him the face hugger, which if you remember John Hurt's character when he's got the alien stuck to his face. That's
Oh.
called the face hugger. And then, of course, the chest burster.
That was scary.
Yep. They were all designed by H.R. Geiger, and the writer O'Bannon handpicked him. He said he first met Geiger in Paris when he was working on the failed Dune movie. He was struck by Geiger's sinister images, and even more so by his actual demeanor. He recalled in a film about the making of Alien, he said Geiger offered him opium immediately upon introduction. When O'Bannon asked the artist why he took opium, Geiger replied, "I am afraid of my visions." O'Bannon assured him it was only his mind. "That's what I'm afraid of," Geiger said.
Oh, God.
So now Geiger has these designs, and Dutch customs officials stopped him because they thought his paintings were photographs and they were deeply disturbed by them. So he was annoyed, and he goes, "Where on earth did they think I could have photographed my subjects? In hell, perhaps?" That was his response. Okay, so I mentioned about Ripley was originally written as a male character. And the writer Shusett admits, "We never dreamed of the lead being a woman. The producers made that call believing a female Ripley would be more unique, but also more palatable to their bankrollers." The producer, David Giler, remembered, "Looking it over, Walter Hill and I thought, here's this one character who's not too interesting. And the studio, I hate to say this, but for very cynical reasons, 20th Century Fox is making Julia and Turning Point, and they really believe in the return of the woman's movie. We'd probably get a lot of points if we turn this character into a woman." So
What do
there
you
you go.
think- What do you think of the scene where they had her take her clothes off?
Right,
mean,
that's
I didn't think
controversial,
that was
and
really
I thought it was
necessary.
kind of gratuitous, but it goes back to Geiger's designs because the alien itself was designed very phallically. And we talked
Oh.
about that, in my film class, everything, was phallic.
Right.
There was also the gratuitous scene where the robot Ash tries to kill Ripley. You remember how he did it? He rolls up like a magazine and sticks it in her mouth.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh,
It was, I didn't understand that one at all. I thought that was
Yeah.
gratuitous and useless, and he's a robot. What the hell? So anyway,
oh God.
so anyway, back to the robot. Ash wasn't in the original script. He didn't appear in the original. He was invented by the producers. The writer Shusett loved the addition, but O'Bannon was less enthusiastic. He complained in a commentary to the 2003 DVD, "If it wasn't in there, what difference does it make? Who gives a rat's ass? So somebody's a robot." So he didn't care, but I thought it had a lot of significance that's how Mother, the name of the ship's computer was Mother, but Mother obviously was programmed by the company. That was Mother's agent, secret agent, watchdog, to make sure everything happens the way the company wants it to. So I thought that was an important distinction. And I thought Ian Holm was terrific, by the way. I don't know if you thought so, but I thought he did. The whole cast did a terrific job. So the name of the ship, Nostromo, comes from a Joseph Conrad novel. Ridley Scott being a huge Joseph Conrad fan, so you get the dark overtones to the movie based on that. It was a 1904 novel by Conrad. That was the title of it. Follows an Italian explorer sent to South America to plunder a silver mine. And again, remember, what the ship was supposedly carrying was ore. Let's see, the shuttle, is called, the shuttle that Ripley uses to escape is called Narcissus, and that refers to yet another Joseph Conrad novel. All right, so cast members regularly passed out on the set. Spacesuits, even fake ones, tend to get hot, especially when they don't let any air out. Add in set lighting, a summertime production schedule, and you have some sweltering conditions. Veronica Cartwright revealed that the actors were fainting so regularly that a nurse was kept on standby with oxygen tanks. But the costumes weren't actually updated until the kids got involved. You remember I told you about the scene with the director and one of the production designers' kids on that big set with the crashed alien ship. And the kids got passed out. So that's when they said, okay, we got to modify these suits so people can breathe. Now, there was actually an actor who played the alien. He was almost 7 feet tall. His name was Bolahai Badejo. And he didn't get the part through a traditional casting call. He was in a pub in London where he moved to study graphic arts, and a casting agent spotted him and immediately called the associate producer for Alien. And they were struggling to find someone who fit the praying mantis aesthetic that they wanted. If you remember, that kind of, a couple of fleeting scenes, the alien's posture was kind of like that of a praying mantis. And that's what they were looking for. So he was lanky, almost 7 feet tall, and he was their guy. He took mime classes to get the alien motions down, and he sat on a custom swing in between takes. Here's why he had to sit on a swing. Remember, it was really hot on the set. He's in a heavy costume. The costume would not let him sit the way it was made with the tail. He couldn't sit down. So they had this custom swing that he could lean into, so he didn't have to be on his feet the whole time.
They did look very
Something
sweaty.
else oh, I'm sorry, what?
No, I was gonna say, a lot of them looked sweaty all the time. They were all sweating. All the time.
Yes, that was real.
Yeah, real, I guess.
And that alien had very active salivatory glands.
Yes, yes. And they used a whole combination of things, which I think I have down here to explain how they made that, which is kind of creepy in some of it. But so anyway, the poor actor who was Badejo, he didn't live too much longer. He lived like another 15 years after the movie, and he died of sickle cell anemia. Now the egg required hydraulics, hand shadows, and cow tripe. Most directors make their cameo with a walk-on bit, not shadow puppets. But director Ridley Scott's big appearance in the movie comes when the face hugger appears to move inside its egg. You remember when John Hurt's bending over the eggs, looking at the movement inside? And I'm thinking, why is he getting so close when it's moving? But sure enough, it goes on his face. So anyway, that was a hand puppet controlled by the director under the shell of the egg, which I thought was kind of cool. And then he was flicking his gloved hands under a moving light. And let's see. Oh, okay. So when everything opens up in John Hurt, those were cow intestines.
Oh.
Now here's another funny bit. The Who's Roger Daltrey helped with the lighting.
Huh.
It says, when the crew disturbs the face huggers, there's a beam of blue light, which indicates early trouble. And you have the Who to thank for that. Roger Daltrey was experimenting with lasers right next to the studio where Alien was shooting, and he graciously lent his equipment to Ridley Scott. I thought that was pretty funny. Now, the actual chest burster scene and the great look of horror on the actors' faces, they didn't know what was happening until it happened. That was not in the script because the director didn't want them to know. He wanted their reactions to be real when it happened. And he had 4 cameras shooting that scene, so he'd be able to capture it all.
Wow.
So he said he kept the details hidden from all the actors, of course, except for John Hurt. They knew a creature would emerge. They had seen the puppet, but they didn't know anything beyond that. And then they said Ridley, Sigourney Weaver, as Ripley said, she started to get a little suspicious when they saw that the crew and for the scene was wearing raincoats. But they didn't know what was in store. Their reaction to the bloody burst is completely genuine. Yaphet Kotto afterwards shut himself in his room right after the scene and wouldn't talk to anyone. Now there's another kind of semi-funny bit. What they were using were these pumps to pump the blood out of his stomach when the chest burster comes through. And apparently a 3-foot stream of blood went right into the face of Veronica Cartwright, and she passed out. So she passed out from not having air when she was in a spacesuit, and then from this.
I guess she wasn't an alien too, huh?
Right, no.
He was dead.
Okay. Okay, so Ash as the robot. So when the robot dies and you see him get all beaten up and everything's coming out of him.
Oh, that was great.
His innards were made from milk, caviar, pasta, and marbles.
What we had for dinner tonight.
And
Ian Holm, the recipe.
Ian Holm really hated that because he hated milk. So here he is covered with his face in milk. Okay, there was a deleted scene where there was a more concrete ending for the crewmates, Dallas and Brett. Ripley would encounter them both as she was rushing to the shuttle. They've been wrapped in an alien cocoon, and only Dallas can make out any words. but it became clear to Ripley they were beyond being saved, so she torches the cocoons. Almost everyone involved felt the scene dragged down Ripley's escape, since the original cut was well over 3 hours, so they left it out of the final film.
Oh, there's Sadie. Hi, Sadie.
Yes. Okay, anyone have any questions or comments at this point?
Well, at least they didn't show a lot of the blood. I mean, it left it up to your imagination.
Right.
What happened to these people? I think we saw a foot hanging, Veronica Cartwright's foot at one point. We never
Right.
knew what happened to the other guy. I guess it was Tom Skerritt or whatever. We never knew what happened to him.
Yeah,
He
you
went
just
off
saw
and-
the alien with him in the tunnel. And he's
Yes,
got
you
the,
didn't see anything. So I
Oh,
thank
right.
the movie. I thank the movie for the lack of blood scenes. Although that one was pretty gruesome when that thing came out of its chest.
right.
You know,
Oh, that was
I'm still
memorable.
trying to understand how he got his appetite back with that thing in his stomach. I just don't understand it, but it was interesting.
Yep.
Did
The
anyone else think it was ludicrous that they're all sitting around in a spaceship smoking?
Yeah.
Oh,
Interesting. That's a good
That
point.
was bizarre.
That drove me nuts.
well,
Oh,
it's
that
79,
part
so
was
those
very
smoking
dated
laws weren't in
because-
effect yet in 1979. And think about it, you know, they had a long trip. If people were smoking addicts, what the heck were they gonna do? Step outside? You really couldn't do that. So,
Well, you know, they were going to cast the Marlboro Man to be Dallas.
yeah.
right.
No, actually, I forgot who they did talk about somebody else. I think it was Robert Redford they were looking at for Dallas, but there were a couple of famous people who they looked at for that. Now, the face part of the alien's head, when you see towards later, was when he's fully grown, was made from the cast of a real human skull, while the drool, okay, wait till you hear this, was made from KY jelly and shredded condoms to create the tendons of the
There you
jaws
go,
beast.
Ann.
Of the jaws of the beast.
Oh,
Just
okay.
a complete aside from the movie industry, Bill Cosby was just released and his verdict was overturned because of procedural matters.
Yeah, we
Yes.
know. We heard about that.
You're
Yeah.
getting that a little later.
You're a
You're
little
in
later.
Canada.
You
Yeah.
must be in Canada.
No, it came from the Atlantic. I'm just looking at
Oh,
it.
yeah, we
Yeah.
did see that.
Where was Bill Cosby during filming?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was dreadful.
That's bizarre.
Totally
It's a
bizarre.
technical issue.
And he can't be retried, so I guess he's free now. That's it.
Really? Can't be retried.
I don't
No.
think so.
Well, he could have got out on parole if he said he did all this and that, and he
Well,
apologized.
No, he was determined to write out his whole sentence because he believed he didn't do anything wrong.
Right.
Yeah, he really did believe that.
Okay. Now Jonesy, remember I mentioned about to scare Jonesy. Jonesy was played by 4 nearly identical cats. So the filmmakers hid a German Shepherd behind a screen, then suddenly removed the screen.
Wow.
The first day she shot a scene involving Jones, Sigourney Weaver's skin started reacting badly. She immediately thought she might be allergic to cats, and it would be easier for the production to recast her instead of trying to find 4 more identical
Oh,
Moggies.
God.
As it transpired, she was actually reacting to glycerin that was sprayed on her skin to make her look sweaty.
Oh,
That goes to Rebecca's point too, that why they looked like they
It
were
looks
sweating,
sweat.
they were getting a spray to make it look like they were sweating.
right.
Wow.
Let's see. Okay. Okay.
But I did love that scene at the end with Ash with his head. It was his real head, but I thought that was great.
His real head,
they
you think his real
basically
head
used
was
this-
lying there? No.
Right. They basically used the same effect with the head twice because John Hurt's head was the same thing. It was his head over a fake body, and he was the rest of his body was under a table.
Right,
And that's what they did with Ian Holm. The rest of his body was underneath.
right.
So,
I thought it was great.
yeah. If you look at that scene with his head when they're carrying it, they have Yaphet Kotto's body cuts in front of the camera, and then all of a sudden you see his head talking. It's sort of a rough cut, like they couldn't quite get the special effects as good as they could.
Yeah,
But
how come-
anyway,
how
if you
come-
look at it, you could tell.
How come they
Um,
couldn't? How come they couldn't pick up that he was a robot? I mean, come on.
Oh, he was a
good
robot.
one. He's a good robot.
I mean,
You
he's a
could
good
tell he was a
robot,
robot.
but come
An
on,
android.
you know.
Did you think he was a robot, Fred?
Absolutely. He sounded just like a robot,
Yeah,
British
but I mean,
robot, right from day
from the
one.
beginning,
Yeah, I knew it.
you knew it. See, I mean, you know, how can you not pick? You know, they didn't have the advances at those, even in the
I have
70s. to
intuitive,
create a
I have
robot
intuitive
like
feelings
that.
about robots. I can tell when somebody's a robot.
I thought
Yeah, well,
All right, I
That's
admit I
stymied
was,
me.
I knew there was something. I knew he was an agent because when he
Right.
directly overrides the order to let them in, I knew he
Right,
was
something.
working for the corporation more than he cared about the
Right,
cast.
no
But I
good.
didn't know he was a robot.
There's a bad
Now,
guy.
H.R. Geiger, this was from ScreenRant.com. H.R. Geiger insisted the xenomorph lack anything resembling eyes, so it appeared much more menacing, soulless, and heartless when attacking its prey. So that does make it more frightening when you can't identify the eyes. Okay, let's see. Oh,
Hey, Ed,
no, it was
Ed, how'd you-
Harrison Ford. Harrison Ford was supposed to play Dallas, but he turned down the role.
Hey, Ed.
Yeah.
How did you, someone said, maybe you said that the corporation, the evil corporation back on Earth wanted to get the alien to be a bio weapon. Now, how do you know that? How do we know they wanted a bio weapon out of that situation?
Well, because they wanted whatever it was because they thought it would be valuable property, much more so than the cast, than the crew. So what I read just online that from the backstory, and I don't know if it came from a book or a novel, but the backstory on this was that the corporation wanted it because they thought it would be a valuable bioweapon. I just read it.
They said, I
They
think in the
mentioned it in the
movie
movie.
that it was going to be, the skin was indestructible and would adapt to the environment.
Right.
That's what they wanted, the skin.
They wanted to make money.
They did
Yeah, it was
say
for
in the
profit
movie,
motive, of
Ed,
course.
they said that it was going to be used as a bioweapon in the movie.
They
They
did.
did make that.
They
I didn't
did?
quite.
They didn't
Yeah,
use
they
the word
said that
bio-
because of,
Yeah, they didn't use the word bioweapon. They said they wanted it as a, a
Weapon?
a weapon in war.
Yes, right.
They did
Right.
say that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yep.
So this was like done by the Trump organization. They kind of set this in motion, and this is really a take on the Survivor, right? The Survivor movie. This is where the Survivor came from. One person kind of wins the battle at the end, never expecting the woman to be the sole survivor.
Right. An early draft of the film, there was supposedly a sex scene between Ripley and Dallas, but they didn't shoot it. They decided against it. There was also a scene where they talked about the creature becoming sexually aroused by Ripley and looking at Ripley, but they didn't use that either. Another thing, Ridley Scott, the director, wanted the movie to end with the alien biting Ripley's head off and then starting to talk like her with her voice.
Well, yeah, a
And
lot
that
of the
got
movies,
overruled.
but a lot of the movies they have is where the
I don't like
alien
that.
takes over somebody's body and comes to
Yes.
Earth, right?
Well,
Right.
that was one of some of the initial critics cited how it had a lot of similarities to The Thing, which was like that.
The Thing, right?
Yeah. So that
I
was there was
thought,
definitely
I thought at the end, the cat was really good, was
Pivotal
the
character.
alien. Somehow he had invaded the cat.
Right.
Ah.
right.
Yeah, it's
You know, I have to
unbelievable
tell
he
you,
didn't.
the cat was so important to Ripley to get the cat, but the cat didn't seem like it was really affectionate and worthy of that kind of risk.
Yeah.
The risk of
It
life.
wasn't like the most endearing cat when you see the whole movie. But okay, so be it.
She just wanted to save her life at that
Right.
point.
There was
She had
no Ripley.
nobody else to save.
She couldn't
and
save
she
anybody
saved
else.
her
It's a
life.
good point, Marcia. That's who she could save.
That's
Right.
right. But there was no
Listen, there's
sexual
a-
energy. There was no sexual energy between Ripley and any of the men, any of the other
No,
men. None.
there's no
No.
sex in the whole
No.
movie.
None.
Well, she
No.
gets
It's a
undressed
sexless
and that's
movie.
it. Like that was it.
Gets
Yeah.
undressed.
Titillates.
Listen, there's a great movie called District 9.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh yeah, I saw that.
And I couldn't wait for the District 10, but I heard it is coming out. But I
It
thought
is.
that was it is. I did hear that.
It is coming out.
Oh, I can't
District
wait.
9.
I
It's
thought
been
that
decided,
horror
so I don't
was
know how long,
so
yeah.
amazing.
Is that
Very
a
good
horror
movie.
movie too?
It's
No.
really no,
It's about how we treat foreigners, essentially.
but it has to do with it's in South Africa and it's just
They
it's
basically
just
put them in a
Oh,
ghetto
look for it.
colony, and it's
it's
sad.
amazing because
Yeah.
there are aliens, but it's
Mhm.
amazingly done. I think.
Yes, really well
Interesting.
done film. Absolutely
Right.
terrific movie. Okay, let's see what else we've got.
So what's the
Um,
symbolism? I'm really interested to hear. Someone
Yeah,
asked
what
about
kind of
Yeah, I
symbolism.
thought we were gonna discuss that, but I guess not.
For which part?
Well, you
The
said there's a
symbolism.
lot of symbolism.
You said there were tons of symbolism. I
Well,
saw,
a lot of phallic symbols,
Yeah.
for one thing,
Yeah.
with the alien and the way it moves, and then you've got the scene with Ripley. And
the
then
shape of the
the whole thing with yeah, it changes its shape, but the whole thing about with the corporation valuing profits over the people.
Mhm.
I mean, that was the whole
That was the
reason
mission
for
of
the movie.
Yeah.
Well, that wasn't
I think
symbolic.
that's a
That was just the
misnomer.
meaning of it.
I
That
think
was
that's a
the
misnomer. The language
mean,
is a
David?
misnomer. I don't think profit is the right word. I think control or power. I don't know that this is an expensive operation. You can't be making any money on this stuff. This is for future control or power or megalomania of trying to control.
Okay, well, that's
having
possible.
that.
If they thought it was a weapon, then that is possible. And,
Yeah.
and they never answer the question if the order was written into the program by Mother because they knew that something like that may be valuable was there or not. They don't answer it. It's just the order is there, and it's an override order to everything else is secondary. And of course, it's only the science officer who could see it because he's the robot programmed by the corporation. And then, of course, the name of the computer being Mother, and then you've got that famous line at the end where Ripley calls Mother a bitch, when she's trying to do the self-destructing, and then she has to go, tries to undo it and couldn't do it in time.
Well, is the cat symbolic of anything?
Well, the cat is symbolic of, again, its name was Jones. So it's the slang term for
right.
Jones is a need. You got a Jones for something. So that's where it goes to address that.
The symbolism that I saw was birth, being born, birth and death. When they came out of the capsules, that was as if they were getting born. I
Yep.
thought the symbolism of the ship, the tunnels, almost was like
Right.
coming through the birth canal.
Right. That's
The alien was evolving as
Right.
it went through the tunnels of the ship. It's almost like it was getting reborn and
Right.
nurtured by Mother, which that was the other thing. They all trusted Mother, and Mother turned out to be
Mother was a bitch, right?
was a bitch, so that was also the image of the alien attaching itself to, I forget the character.
yeah.
The one whose stomach burst open.
John Hurt.
What was that?
John Hurt.
Yeah, his character, right. His
Kane.
character, that was almost like rape. That was almost like he invaded him, almost like he went into the mouth, and, it
Right.
was almost like he was raped and he was impregnated.
Right. Well, there's a lot of sexual over, like I said, the scene where Ian
Yeah.
Holm is trying to kill Ripley with, the rolled up newspaper in her throat. Yeah. Oh, and then there was the scene. Now, the interesting thing, do you remember the scene where the alien sees the cat because Ripley had to drop the cat to run?
Yes.
And what did the alien do?
The alien was frightened, right? Was the alien frightened? I don't
No,
know.
it wasn't frightened. It went like this. It was trying to understand what the cat was.
Oh.
It was confused, but it also didn't kill it. It could have killed it, but it didn't. It was only killing the humans. No explanation as to why, but it found the cat fascinating and curious, and it let it live.
So, some of these nuances we miss on television. I think this is a big screen film. This is a large screen film with as much.
It was great in the big screen with the with the stereo and all. Yeah, because the sound design was terrific too.
It's interesting that a man gave birth to the alien, not a woman.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
they
I was
did that.
thinking
They
that.
switched the sexual
Yes.
things with that, and of course Ridley Scott being,
Yes.
Ripley as Sigourney Weaver being the hero. They kind of switched the traditional roles. Now, the other thing I thought was kind of symbolic that about man being primitive. We talked about, Dallas is stuck in the cave with a fire trying to kill this superhuman super being. The other part was when they found the ship that had crashed, and the giant, they call it the space jockey, was the nickname for the crashed pilot that died with the stomach burst open. You just saw the remains, and you saw how small they were the spacemen. I mean, it was, we didn't know, I didn't know it was the kids of the production people. It was supposed to be the characters, how tiny they were. That was also symbolic of how stupid and ignorant we are as a human race in the grand scheme of space and the universe. So that was sort of putting us down as a human race. There were several things like that.
Maybe that's why he didn't kill the cat. He thought the cat was more worth saving than humans. You know?
Right, exactly. Thank you for making that point, because yeah, it was more of a pure being, like Alien was. There were maybe some symmetry or symbolism there. Just the whole way the ship was programmed was kind of interesting.
I would have saved the
you
cat.
talked about the birth.
I would have risked my life to save the cat. I would have ran after the cat. I like the cat.
Well, they talk again, we talked about how the movie starts really when they wake up. You got like 45 minutes of very little happening, except you get to know the characters a little bit, and then everything happens and they're in survival mode. And then of course it ends with just Ripley left with the cat and going back to sleep. So, and then, hoping she'll be found, which she narrates that she's putting herself in an area where there's a lot of space traffic. So hopefully she gets found, but she may not. And she didn't know when she goes to sleep, not knowing what her fate will be. So yeah, it says, the director had a fight for, as he said, those first 45 minutes. Alien eases audiences into the terror. The wait and see setup makes the inevitable all the more dreadful. According to Ridley Scott, he had a fight for the opening. I always remember arguing with some of my colleagues, in particular the studio, about the opening. They'd always say, well, nothing happens for 45 minutes. I'd say that's the whole point. Once it starts to happen, I think we should have them, meaning the audience. Nothing happens then, but it's revealing that the world these workers in space, it's revealing the world which these workers in space work within. Okay. I got that one. Oh, do you remember the scene where they went to go investigate the spaceship? They land on the planet and they go out to investigate, and everything gets blurry. And so that there was technical issues with them trying to get the feed to see what was going on the ship. Do you remember that? So Ripley was back in control. She's saying, "What's going on, Ash?" And he's looking, but it's like static. Okay, there's a thematic reason for it. And there's also a practical reason. The practical reason was when they tried showing the planet, the surface of the planet through the camera, it looked too cheap. Ridley Scott said it doesn't look good enough. They didn't have the budget to make it look better. So someone came up with the idea to make it staticky, to make it, so they used a handheld camera and they shot it through another camera, like through a video camera, to make it look all staticky, so we couldn't really see what was going on. And then they came up with the idea, well, make it a storm too. So there's a storm on the planet, so that makes it even worse. So from a production standpoint, that made a lower budget movie look like it could be a bigger budget movie, but thematically it also shows that they're working with primitive tools to try to comprehend something they have no way of comprehending. So it kind of put that in perspective too. I thought that was something.
Yeah, and regarding what you just said about the scene wasn't good enough, so they had to do artificial devices to sort of fill in for an inadequate picture.
From a production design standpoint, because of budget.
Yeah, no, so that being said, can you imagine this on the radio where everything was auditory, you follow? And everything that you just said we had to fill in because it was staticky. That's the essence of the old radio shows where
like War of the Worlds.
Exactly. And you could remember, your own mental visions of what was going on. And I don't know, I think we ought to go back to radio. All of the effort that goes into the things that you could create like that in your mind, it's kind of an interesting contrast.
Yeah, they can't make the money back on radio though. That's the problem. But here they made, they invested 11 million and made back over 100. So that was pretty good. But War of the Worlds, if you've never heard the radio show, I encourage you to find it. It really is terrific. Okay, Orson Welles. Let's see. I'm just looking if there's something else here. Okay, so they talk about the set design. Brett's character, Harry Dean Stanton, even though his death was completely telegraphed, you can know exactly when he's going to get it. It's still suspenseful. The set had a surprising amount of gold involved because this is one of the equipment rooms. That's where they shot it. It was an equipment room. Ridley Scott said, I just got fairly exotic equipment like small bulldozers. We just sprayed them all gold. Somehow it just works on a high-tech piece of equipment. Harry always loved his close-up in that scene. You remember where he puts his head back and lets the water drip on him? I don't know if you remember that scene with the machinery in the background. He said he found me at the premiere and thanked me for the close-up. The sound you hear during his death scene, that's the sound of a pulse. It's a very pulled back heartbeat. It's one of the many organic sounds that was used in the movie. Okay.
No, it's still.
Ridley Scott was not the first person to chosen to direct the movie. He was the fourth in line for consideration, but the studio executives were so taken aback by his debut feature, The Duelist, on a low budget, that they hired him. And then they doubled the budget from the film from 4 million to 8 million, and it ended up being 11 when they saw his impressive storyboards and designs.
Good night.
The sound
everybody.
team.
Sign off. Good night.
Okay, good night.
Good night.
I'm just wrapping up. The sound team worked forever on Ian Holmes' voice as he died. They used a spooky Doppler effect when he professes his admiration for the xenomorph.
So Ed, look, and Blanche Katz's, you can't see it now, but her husband was wearing a T-shirt that said Jones, and then Nancy Thompson Jones. We had two Joneses.
That's right, and we have the Jones in the film. Right, there we go.
Right, so
All
these
right.
little nuances.
Okay, I think that covers it. Yeah, well,
Let's see.
okay. They talked, there's a whole scene, a whole dialogue on them talking about the chest burster scene and what they did and how they were surprised by it, but I think I covered it. So that pretty much covers it. And I appreciate everybody. I'm sorry for the delay, but thank you for coming on board. And
Let's fix the delay for next time. Let's fix that delay.
I'm going to work on that. Yeah, I mean, I tried going on like almost 15 minutes early, and but I'll work on it again. So everyone put their info in the chat, right? We're all good?
Yeah, mine too.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, great.
Yeah,
All right.
get a
Well, thank you
high-tech
so much.
person to help you.